Okay. So welcome to Ketchikan, Alaska News. I'm here with Ed Eppler. And Ed, your official title is the ER coordinator at the hospital here?
Yeah, I'm the medical director, the physician medical director of the emergency department, and I'm the incident command for the medical side of the COVID crisis, so the team leader, so to speak.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How long have you been doing this? And how long have you been in the medical profession?
Well, I've been a physician for approximately 25 years, and administrative part of physicianing for 20 years, which you do part-time in addition to your administrative work. Grew up in Washington State, went to medical school in Seattle, and back in the day, in the mid-90s, it's hard to believe at this time of the world, but there was no emergency medicine trauma residency for civilians in Washington State, in Seattle at all. And so I moved to Indianapolis, which is, and I still have a home there. And Indianapolis back then was one of the oldest and best, probably at the time, was the Harvard of emergency medicine. And so I went out there for training, and like almost every other business, you get to know people, you get connections, and you grow roots and you stay. And so I still have a home in Indianapolis, 3 children that are grown. And I also have a home here, just down by the Coast Guard station. So I spend half my time in Ketchikan, half my time in the West.
So tell us a little bit about the mood at the hospital with the staff under this current, pandemic. It's not that often that little towns like Ketchikan have to deal with this scale of a crisis. And what's your staff feeling, and how's it looking up there?
So first, I actually have some specialized training in disaster medicine that I picked up 25 years ago. Oddly enough, and ironically enough, I've used that training more in Ketchikan than I have anywhere else. From plane wrecks to COVID crisis.
Right.
And so the mood at the hospital. So just things moved so fast, right? So historically, think about what happened in the world.
Yeah.
February 5th or 6th, I forget the exact day, Trump was being impeached, and he got I guess the term is acquitted. February 5th or 6th, coronavirus was in the news, but the country was distracted with politics, and then then fast forward some, February 5th or 6th, Trump was acquitted. February 26th was when Kirkland, Washington nursing home, basically blew up with coronavirus, staff and patients.
That's kind of when I became a little bit aware of it, was around Kirkland.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It was in our face. It was in our neighborhood, essentially, in Seattle. And then, so that was February 26th. And then March 11th, we got our first emergency declaration from Governor Dunleavy. And then March 13th, Friday the 13th, we had patient 0 at Ketchikan.
So that's 2 weeks, essentially, from
2 weeks, right?
From Kirkland.
From Kirkland. Or February 5th, we were doing the acquittal. February 26th, Kirkland, and March 13th, patient 0. And I actually arrived back on the island. I wrapped up some business back east, and when I saw that flights were being canceled from China and Europe, I canceled all my activities back east and came here to help with my tribe, so to speak, lead the team. And so I arrived March 16th, 3 days after our patient 0. And March 17th, we had begun setting up a tented drive-through unit for testing. And by March 18th, we had the COVID unit, which is a repurposed the pre-op area, the PAC view for the operating room. The operating room was shut down because all elective surgeries were stopped.
Right.
And so when I got to the island, the staff, so your question was, what's the morale? When I got to the island, the staff were, I wouldn't say panicked, but very nervous. They didn't have a plan yet. What are we gonna do with these patients? Are they gonna be in a room, 2 feet away from the 90-year-old grandma with a hip fracture? What do you do with babies, infants? What do you do with staff? How do you protect the staff? And so what we did was we instituted a procedure whereby, so the drive-through initially was patients identified through public health as having primary exposure to patient 0, and symptoms were brought in a timed fashion, so it was scheduled to the drive-through, and in full protective equipment. The doctor, me, a nurse, an ER nurse, two of them went out, and we would do 10 or 12 patients in a day. Every 5 to 10 minutes, have another person drive up. They never got out of the car. We telephone triaged and telephone registered them, so there was very limited time face-to-face that would cause more exposure. So patients stayed in the car. I performed the history and physical through the window of the car. The nurse did the swab. We had pre-printed discharge instructions and away the patient goes. And of the 15 patients or so that we've had in Ketchikan, 9 of those patients I personally swabbed, or I was personally involved with intent. Well, and go ahead.
Well, that's interesting, because I've been following it from kind of the news angle, and we never really heard that perspective that the testing was happening outside of the physical building. There was a lot of I think misinformation. People were being sent to actual clinics per se, the general clinics around the community. So to hear that they were actually coming and driving by, and you guys were going out into that is an interesting. Say that.
We still are.
And you're still doing it that way.
Yes. So if you're an ER patient, you show up to the ER with signs and symptoms needing emergency evaluation. You're an ER patient. You're brought inside. Mm-hmm. If you're identified through public health or employee health as having symptoms but not needing to see a physician to determine how sick you are, then you would go through the drive-through.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And even now, when the Peace Health Clinic identifies a patient, say they see Dr. Rice or Dr. Liljegren in the office, and they determine they need a test, then we'll schedule them in the drive-through, and one of our ER nurses will go out in the full protective equipment. It looks like a moon suit.
Yeah.
And take the test and send it to lab for testing. So that's one way that we do the testing and evaluation. The other one is the COVID unit that we set up in the PACU. This is pretty sophisticated.
Yeah.
So you walk through that. For Ketchikan, it's really sophisticated, and for the whole world, I think it is a model that that has been actually copied in other places, truly. And so when you go to the back door of the hospital where it says emergency, that door, there's a right-sided door and a left-sided door. Mm-hmm. The left-sided door, you go into the ER, and it's separated by visqueen, by plastic sheeting. And then there's a long hallway down to the PACU. And if you're a respiratory patient with respiratory symptoms or a fever, you would go down there for evaluation. And that area is what's called negative flow, meaning, in your house, you have positive flow from your forced air. And forced air in a hospital setting through a COVID unit would force COVID air throughout the entire hospital.
Yeah, bad news.
Would potentially destroy anything in its path.
Yeah.
And so we reversed engineered. We took the HVAC and we sent it through the ceiling, through the roof of the building, through some filters, and all that air goes outside. So the air is stuck out and outside. And thus far, 0 staff members, 0 physicians have been found to have gotten sick from either the outdoor testing unit or the indoor COVID unit.
That's awesome. So that is fascinating. And just on that note, is that something, because of your specialized training, you were able to bring to the hospital, or is that something that came from somewhere else?
Well, I definitely was instrumental in it, but it was a whole team of people, anesthesia and surgeons who know what the PACU looks like and what the limitations are, building resources, maintenance, knowing how to work the HVAC, nursing, X-ray, knowing the best route to set up traffic to get their machines in and out. And another part of the whole COVID unit, dedicated staff, nursing, dedicated equipment. So the same portable X-ray machine, the same EKG machine, the same ultrasound machine that never leaves the unit.
Well, this is part 1 of a 2-part series with Ed. I found this conversation so fascinating, I couldn't edit it down. So I'll post the second half of this conversation tomorrow. And once again, I want to thank Ed for his time and his articulate knowledge of how this is playing out. This pandemic's playing out here in Ketchikan at the Peace Health Hospital. So look forward to this tomorrow, the second half.